And what's happening? Good. What's happening?
Good morning.
Good.
Right after
Good.
the Super Bowl.
Yes, it was. Well, I don't know if it was a Super Bowl, but it was a ball game.
Yep. And today,
Somewhat.
today is your 50th birthday.
Mine?
50?
I
50
I can
years
remember
old.
that. Yes. 50.
50?
I know.
The Super Bowl of birthdays.
Wow. Big year.
Archaic.
Okay. Yeah. Yep.
Yes.
So who are we here with?
Big
Teresa
year.
Barnabei. And what does she do? She's actually owner of Course Creators, correct?
Yes.
And a coach at
am.
that. And I'm going to actually have you kind of elaborate a little bit more, if you don't mind. That way people can kind of get to know you a little bit better to
Sure.
kind of roll out here.
Sure. So before real estate, I had a 14-year career with UPS. Started out as a driver. Figured out how to work my way through the ranks, or as some people say, up the ladder, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I went from a driver to a supervisor to a manager. And my goal with that company was to get to corporate America, because I always thought I could have the greatest impact up there. And I did. And after 14 years, I retired.
Ooh.
Came back home, Tucson. Took a couple of years off trying to figure out what I wanted to be when I grew up. Failed miserably at a lot of little gimmicks because I didn't have my head on right. And then I decided, well, I was already an investor in real estate way before I was a licensee. So I said, well, how can I keep investing and keep teaching? Because I was teaching for UPS. And I said, well, I'll just get into real estate. Now I'll have all the houses, the inventory at my fingertips.
Yep.
And I can teach other agents how to be successful.
What were you teaching at UPS?
Negotiations.
Gotcha.
Oh, wow. Figure that.
There
Figure
you
that. Figure that.
Yeah.
Yep.
So I got my license in real estate and I started producing very quickly. Was very successful for 4 years. Broke my office records for new agent of the year, and then went into management again without the intention, but I was asked and tapped a couple times, so I went into management. Ran an office of 150 people. Thought, this isn't why I got into real estate.
Gotcha.
So I said I wanted to continue to invest, which I didn't have time as a manager. And I wanted to teach, which I didn't have time as a manager. So I figured out how to do it in my branch, and I started my coaching business
There you go.
as a manager. And then I thought, well, I can open up a real estate school. So I opened up a real estate school. Now, it wasn't like, I just woke up one morning and said, I want to open up a real estate
Yeah.
school. I mean, it took some thinking, right? Had to get my head in the right place. So I opened up a real estate school, and those two businesses they're both very successful, debt-free. They're looking exactly like I want them to. And then in the last, about the last 5-6 years, I've been able to get hired nationally. So I travel and teach people how to be either better agents or better instructors. I'm loving my life.
You know what? You can tell. You can tell.
I love my life?
Yeah, absolutely. That's the one thing that stands out with you, that you can tell you're doing what you love, and it just resonates. It really does. And I've known you for years. Let's just say years. And then every
Not 50.
single not 50, but I get definitely something. I take away something.
I think you were the first one that bought our first book.
It sure was.
I'm pretty sure.
I do remember that.
You were. And I've been fortunate to publish 2 since then.
What 2 books you have now? I know you. I know
I
the
should
one.
have brought them. I didn't think about it. So I had the Multiply Your Business. So it's the 10 marketing realities of the real estate industry.
Yes.
And then the one I just released, the first of this year, is Flight of Your Life.
Oh, really?
How to get from where you are to where you dream to be. Which is really everything that I use to get everything I wanted in my life.
So has writing books, is that something you could look back 20 years ago and it was on your bucket list?
No.
So 20 years ago, if I would have said you'd had 3 books?
No.
That's awesome.
No, what happened is in 2003, my dad passed.
Okay.
And I was privileged enough to be one of his main caretakers during the last month of his life, right? And when he passed, I thought, oh my gosh, I should write a book, Life Lessons from My Father, right? In honor of him, because he taught us so much, and he taught us so much on his deathbed. That's where I got the idea. So this, it's only 15 years, but it's taken me, 10 years to actually get a book. And I haven't written that book yet, because, you start working with publishers and they're like, what do you want this book to do? And so then I went this way. So I'm very happy with both of them. And no, I would not have thought I would have books published.
That's so awesome.
One a
You know,
bestseller.
we were talking to somebody about book publishing, and one of the things that hold them back is every day they keep thinking they'd have to change the book.
Yeah.
And keep changing it and keep changing it. So, not from a perfectionist point of view, but more of a, I've got so much to put into it, and I'm trying to do that. But I think that's a huge struggle with most people. They don't know how to convey their story. You know?
It's funny you say that, because I was coaching somebody yesterday who's interested in writing a book, and I said, look, you got to get your main points out. You can always have volume 2, right? You can always do a second book, but if you don't put the message on paper, nobody's going to get the message that you want to share.
So is it harder coming up with the content to fill a book, or whittling it down to create it in the length you want?
Whittling it down.
Wow. Yep.
Yeah, because I think when we start writing a book, we start realizing how much we store.
Yeah.
I mean, we know, pick any topic, and I bet you know enough to write a book. There's no doubt in my mind. Whether it's biking, whether it's real estate, with building a team, building a business, podcast, it doesn't matter. We have so much knowledge, and we don't give ourselves credit for that. That's why mindset's so important.
Yeah. Let's talk about mindset, because that's kind of what we were talking about today. And I think that can go so many different ways. So from your perspective, talk to us about mindset. Well, where should we begin, and then ultimately what are we trying to achieve, and then how much of an impact is that?
Yeah, great questions. The first thing is, and I'm sure people are going to be like, oh God, I've heard this before. But the first thing is you got to know what you want. Yeah. But to know what you want, you have to give yourself permission to dream. You got to give yourself permission. If time, money, energy were not an issue, what would I do? Right? And go to the ideal, because we get to design this life every day. And if we don't, somebody else is going to. Right? Whether it's old programming from when you were a kid, if it's your boss telling you what to do, if it's a coworker, if it's a spouse, somebody else is going to run your life. So you got to get really clear on what your passion is, and then give yourself the opportunity to explore. If I could live every day in passion, what would that be like? And dream.
I think that's a struggle for most people, is trying to actually take the time to take that time to reflect, and I think that's the toughest thing for most.
Yeah.
Or I should say for at least myself. Sometimes.
Yeah, no, I'm with you. I think that step one, you have to give yourself permission. And when you give yourself permission to take that moment to just say, I'm just going to be with me, because we're not trained that way. We're trained to be unselfish, selfless beings, right? Yeah. Which serves a purpose, don't get me wrong. But giving ourselves permission to say 15 minutes a day, it's just going to be about me.
It's okay to be selfish for that
yeah,
time.
I actually call it self-centered.
Yeah.
Right? And not in a bad way. Just that self-centered, like every day I'm just going to get aligned with who I am. And people say, Theresa, that's sheer utopia, but it's not, because I work with people every day, and it's really helping them just getting that centeredness. Because when you're really centered and you're really standing firm on your feet, you can't move me. Yep. Right? I used to take martial arts, and there's that stance we have. I'm kind of going in it right now, sitting down. But there's that stance we have, and once we get into that stance, you can't move me. Yeah. So I just ask people, just go there and give yourself permission to allow it to be about you. Here's the key to that, though. Because when you go be with yourself and understand what you can do with your life, then you can start realizing what that does for everybody else. Right? Gotcha. And then that's where it really becomes an unselfish act to get self-centered. Because the rollover effect, that pebble in the pond, oh my God, if you're at your highest, if you're most passionate, you'll move your team. Yep. And they won't even know what hit them, but they'll move them. And the benefits that roll out to them, and then the benefits that roll out to their families and their clients. And you can't stop the rollover effect. And so there's value in...
Yeah, it's funny that you say that. I'm listening to David Goggins' book, Can't Hurt Me, and Today,
I just started it today.
I was talking about, I think I'm a butcher. I think he either calls it the truth or honesty mirror, and he talks about where he sits down, he looks at the mirror himself, and like you're saying, is it allows you to get rid of all the noise and focus on who you are and be truthful.
Yeah.
With yourself.
If we don't do that, do you guys remember? I'm gonna date myself, but even.
Oh, well, it's all right. Trust me.
Do you remember the Dunkin' Donuts commercial where the guy would get up at 4:00 in the morning
time
and
to
it's
make
all
the
dark,
donuts?
and he shuffles and says it's time to make the donuts? I think that until we stop and really look, we shuffle through life like that guy.
Yeah.
So you can either be the Dunkin' Donuts man or you can be the Dunkin' Donuts owner, right?
Yeah.
Because either choice is ours.
Yep, I think that's a struggle today. We've got such a fast-paced lifestyle, or not even community, but everything is just so fast to where trying to slow down is almost impossible to some.
There's a saying I put in my most recent book, and I said, slowing down is gearing up, right? So you really have to slow down so that you can gear up. Because if you don't slow down to get excited about something, you're not really geared up. You're just shuffling through life. But if you slow down long enough and get what's between your ears really aligned so that you know what it is that you want, you're passionate about it, you'll take off. You look at the Tony Robbins of the world. It's the same thing. That man was passionate at 17, relentless at 17. Now look at him.
Yep.
And we look and we say, yeah, but that's Tony Robbins. Well, Tony Robbins was almost homeless, right? At least we have roofs over our head.
Yeah.
We have offices to work in.
We're supposed to go see him next month. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
So it's all possible. It's whether we believe it, and that's where the mindset is, right? I believe that we can accomplish whatever we set our minds to. And there's this thing called commitment to what we believe we want or feel that we want, are passionate about, then get committed to it.
What I appreciate is that you haven't mentioned money once. You haven't mentioned titles, statures. It's whatever you want. Like, my wife loves being a stay-at-home mom. Like, that's her thing.
Yeah.
That's where she finds her most joy and purpose.
yeah.
It's not being the CEO of a billion-dollar company.
No, it's what's most important to you.
That's awesome.
Look, we have one life. Design it or let somebody else design it.
Yeah.
But if you're going to let somebody else design it, then there's no room for complaining.
Exactly, because you're left with the cards that are on the table. Yeah.
It's still a decision,
Yeah.
right? And you look, we need people who want to follow your direction. We need those people. And there's nothing wrong with it.
No.
But that's a decision. So make a decision which way you want to go. And it's all okay because we all give ourselves permission. And then if we would learn as a society not to pass judgment, everybody really would do what they want to be doing.
I think the older I get, I'm going to say I've kind of honed in on that a lot more to, I think there's always going to be judgment no matter what. Just how we're, I don't even want to say geared, but just experiences. But I've learned to understand that I am judging at a certain time, and that's not right, or it is okay to judge, but just don't react, or whatever it may be.
You can have a personal opinion,
Yes.
but don't stop them because of
Exactly.
your personal opinion, because
Exactly.
they have a personal opinion
Exactly.
that's more important for directing their life than your personal opinion about directing their life.
So one thing that we talk a lot about is your mindset and your actions can also be attributed a lot to who you allow to speak into your life.
Totally.
If you've got toxic stuff, garbage in, garbage out.
Yeah.
How do you filter who you allow to speak into your life?
About, 10, 12 years ago, I heard this guy speak, and he says you have 3 gates that you have to protect.
Okay.
You have to protect your eye gate, what you allow yourself to see. You have to protect your ear gate, what you allow yourself to hear. Then you have to protect your mouth gate, what you allow yourself to say that could be damaging out there.
Yeah.
And ever since he said that, it became like a diligent effort on my part to really pay attention to the energy that people bring. And if it's a toxic energy, I can give myself permission to say, I don't want to associate there. Like, I stopped watching the news a long time ago. So I protect my eye gate, my ear gate. And I have friends that watch the news, and they now know they cannot talk about the news around me. Because once it gets in here, we have a hard time letting it go. We are programmable people. And if we let the wrong programs get in, like you said, it's garbage in, it's garbage out. And now it starts affecting our lives. So I just practice the principle of the gates.
That's great.
So
that's actually very interesting.
Anybody that's listening to this,
that's actually very interesting.
I wish I could credit the guy that I heard say that, and unfortunately I can't. But
really, those are the 3 areas that you protect. And I caught myself listening. I listen to podcasts when I drive. It takes me about 50 minutes to an hour to get to the office, and I always throw on podcast. And I realized that whenever even podcasts where it's just background noise, because it can't be silent in the car ever, right? That starts dictating how you speak as well, you know.
Totally.
So shifting more towards educational stuff as I'm driving pays off long term.
So can I help you for a second? So you have 50-minute drive.
Yep.
For the first 15 minutes, just be with you.
Yeah.
Because you get in that car and you just sit in that seat and you just release the tension, right? Give it to the steering wheel, whatever you want. Just be with you. You'll be amazed at what comes your way. Just allow yourself to just be. Then if you get bored with that or you don't like what you hear, turn the podcast on.
Yeah.
But you have the time. So see, when we talk about, I don't have the time to just stop. Yeah, we do.
Yes.
It's how we allocate that
You're
time.
making the choice not to.
Yes, because we can't be silent in the car.
Yeah.
Right?
Absolutely.
You really can be. And it's just part of the time.
Yep.
And now you'll start finding time. And anybody that's listening, you're going to find time.
Yep.
Because we see, well, when we become aware, we can see how we're wasting our time. But it's that awareness. So we just piqued everybody's awareness. Now people are going to be like, oh, wow, I'm just wasting time right now.
We've talked about that, especially with our agents, going time, not only time blocking, but going, okay, I want you to, for a week, track down every single day what you're doing and the time you're doing it. And you start to realize how much margin you actually do have.
Yeah.
You're just filling that margin with stuff so it feels like you don't have time.
Yeah.
You know?
It's the same with money.
Yeah.
Until you track where your pennies go, you don't realize how much money we waste.
Yep.
Yes.
You know, I work with clients all the time on business budgets and personal budgets, which I know is a bad word, budget. But we'll always find money left at the end of the month.
Yep.
Always. I've not worked with one person who hasn't had money at the end of the month.
And when you track your money, you can find out where your priorities are.
Yeah, where you're
as well.
spending it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's
And you'll start realizing what you're not spending on what you really want.
Yep.
Right. So then now we come from this deprived energy. You think about that. That's a huge mindset thing. We're either going to come from, I'm living my passion, I love what I'm doing every day. There's a different energy in that. Versus, oh man, I can't afford this, or it's so tough, or there's so much money that I need, or there's month left at the end. There's a different energy with that.
Yeah.
And then we show up different because we think.
I think it's a hard shift
poorly.
to get from that to the first energy level that you're talking about, because I think it's coming from scarcity and it's also a part of survival too. You know, but I think once they get into that element, then they see what they aren't supposed to be doing. You know,
Or see what they could be doing.
could be doing, or could be doing more of.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which right there, that statement right there is a mindset shift, right? So instead of thinking of what we can't do, let's think about what we could do, right?
Yeah.
But we're negatively programmed. I mean, we learn that in both, right?
Oh,
There's more
Yeah.
negative words in the English language and positive. So
Yeah.
What's some of your favorite things to teach? Because if we walk down this hallway, 95% of the agents have gotten some of their CE credits
yes,
from you.
The majority.
A majority, right?
yes, they have.
We've got it programmed here in our office to where every quarter they can take a CE class, get them
Yes.
all over a 2-year period, and then teaching on mindset. What's If you could only teach one thing, what would that be?
It'd probably be just expand.
Okay.
Just expand your thinking. You know, there's this thing called black and white, and we get stuck in the black and white, right? So, well, like the statistics class that we taught, and you taught a class right before that, and we're still like trying to get people to embrace it.
Yeah.
So you can look at the black and white, and you can say, well, these are just a bunch of numbers. But when you expand your thinking, what can I do with those numbers is a whole different conversation.
Yeah.
Right? Can I take those numbers and convince a buyer it's time to buy, or a seller it's time to sell, or show them why?
Yeah.
It's not just the black and white for the black and white, but expand your thinking to the application. And that's all I ever teach in CE. It doesn't matter what I'm saying, it's how you apply it, right?
Yeah.
Because otherwise it's just a bunch of words, and anybody can give you a bunch of words for 3 hours. Anybody can.
Yeah.
Many years ago, there was another individual that you taught with, and that was one thing. I remember him talking to me about that was...
My buddy.
Yeah, your buddy. Yeah. And what we did is, I remember asking him, because I was so frustrated with, you know, there was a lot of great content that you guys, you know, kick out. And I'm like, why don't these people just grasp it and run with it? You know, and the 80-20 rule comes into play. But I'm like, how do you overcome that frustration of sitting in front of a group of 100, 150 people, knowing darn well that only a handful are going to take it and run with it? I mean, I personally struggle with that. Yeah. Do you, or is it more of a, have you accepted the fact that not everybody's going to take that advice and run with it?
Okay, so this is going to be a mindset shift. Mm-hmm. When I started speaking nationally, my peers would say, you know, only 10% of your audience is going to hear 10% of what you say. And I'm like, man, those are horrible odds. Mm-hmm. And then I had to have a conversation with myself. And I got really, really clear that my job is to deliver the message. And I deliver the message with the hope that one person gets it. Because if one person gets it and they use it, they'll be more successful. And then we go back to the pebble in the pond conversation. So I don't look at 100 people and say, I gotta convert 100 people. Yeah. I gotta touch one person at a time. And it might be, I might say this and it touches one person. I might say this and it touches a different person. And whenever those touches happen, then something else is gonna happen. And there's gonna be a positive rollover effect. So I have to celebrate the people who, we say in the industry, you'll know because the light bulb goes on in their eyes. I have to focus on the one in that split second that get it.
It's segmented. It's not the whole 1 hour talk is going to be about just one person. It could be one phrase is life changing for this, one phrase.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It'll happen when you go to Tony Robbins. You'll hear one thing, they'll have a huge impact. You'll hear a totally different thing, they'll have a huge impact. You'll walk away and you'll say, "Oh, I didn't hear that." Yep. You'll say, "Oh, I didn't hear that."
That's
but
what
I heard
this. Every reunion,
so
every year.
Yeah, there you go.
So one of the things I love we do is Aaron and I and Jenny travel a bunch, go to a bunch. We're usually at everything together. Is when and there's that decompress time. We drive back from Phoenix or travel back, and we start going through notes and stuff and going, I didn't even hear that.
Exactly.
And then you bring it up and go. It's just, and not only that, what's amazing too about it is Aaron and I can write down listen to the same thing, take the same note, and read the note to each other, and that note is different.
Yeah. And I think that's where it goes to prove that the debrief is more important than the actual content, because you can dissect that debrief into where you want to go with it, the content.
Which I'll never forget you telling me that about from rescue missions being deployed is, okay, the mission's done. The mission's not really done. The mission's not done until the debrief's over.
Right.
And how to change it, how to make it better, how to learn from it.
The debrief's going to affect all the missions going forward.
Exactly.
Right.
And I think the lives that we live, how fast we're moving, we finish something, it's done. I.e. real estate. All right, a closing happens. It's not closed.
Yeah.
It's just begun.
Right.
I mean, you know, but I think that's just.
I used to help run summer camps and stuff, and we'd take, 1,500 kids from Arizona, California for a week, sometimes 2 weeks, and we'd have services and stuff like that. And every morning, when all the leaders get together, is we ask 2 questions: what worked, what didn't.
Yeah.
And it's amazing the conversations. Just asking those 2 questions from an event or a meeting or whatever. There's
Well,
much value.
We all come from our own perspective.
Yeah.
So I can only hear what my perspective can allow in. You can.
That's
you
right.
Can,
Yep.
Right.
That's right.
And so when we debrief, we triple that because now I hear it a different way. You hear it, right?
Yeah.
And now we can sit and say, well, okay, what are we going to do with those perspectives? And it's a great awareness tap that says, hey, you recognize that's how you're thinking?
Yep.
It's an it's an awakening. It's like you learn a little bit more about yourself because you're like, oh, that's how I interpreted that, and I could have interpreted it that way. Oh, abundance, scarcity. You figure out
Exactly.
who you are, where you're coming from.
And to cut it off.
Can we talk a couple minutes about accountability?
No. Yes.
We're going to talk about is that same thing with accountability. Is I think a lot of people they like the concept of accountability, but what we found is that with accountability is I can hold you accountable, but like you just said, is it's what you do with it after that that matters. How is accountability successful for people? Where do people fall short with accountability?
Well, this is just from my perspective as a coach. What I know is I can't tell you what to do and hold you accountable for something I'm telling you what to do.
Okay.
You've got to come up with it. And when you come up with the idea, the plan, the action, the time frame, you're going to hold yourself accountable. You came up with those.
Gotcha.
Yep.
I'm going to be the secondary accountability check. I'm not the primary, right? So if I keep telling you what to do, you're just doing what I'm telling you. There's not personal development.
I'm
in that.
pleasing you.
Yeah, exactly. So you've got to, when you come up with, Theresa, this is what I want to work on. This is how long I need to work it on. This is what I'm going to accomplish. Then I'm like, okay, great. Then we're talking, if you tell me you need 2 weeks, we're talking at 2 weeks and a day. You're going to hold yourself accountable for the 2 weeks because you said you wanted to get that done. You want that accomplishment.
That's your goal.
Now I'm going to hold you accountable after you've already held yourself accountable for 2 weeks. That to me is like the true power in coaching for my programs anyway.
Yeah.
I mean, that's my perspective.
I totally get that.
Because the buy-in is huge.
Well, it's their buy-in.
It's their buy-in, not mine. I'll support you whatever you do as long as it's healthy in the direction we're moving in.
That's what I love about like our team is we don't set agents' production goals. They set their own goal.
Perfect.
And we provide the systems, models, resources, and accountability to help you hit your goal.
Perfect.
You know, that's
Perfect.
Exactly. So as a my goodness, you're a plethora of knowledge. So I have 2 questions for you.
Sure.
One is, what's the best book you ever read? And the second's going to be, what are you currently reading or listening to?
Oh. Okay, so I'm currently reading The Science of Mind.
The Science of Mind?
Yes.
Okay.
And it's a book about like
Oh my goodness.
this thick by Ernest Holmes. And it's all about, okay, I'm just going to say it. Ask and it is given, seek and ye shall find, knock and the door shall be answered. It's that guiding principle of the universe that truly allows me to say, I believe we can have anything we want with clarity, passion. Ask, get out of the way, receive. So that's what I'm reading right now. Probably the best book, my favorite all-time book is called Mutant Message Down Under. And, there's some controversy about that book, whether it's true, whether it's fiction, nonfiction, whatever. I don't really care. But the message in that is this woman decides to do a walkabout with the Aborigines and learns so much about herself and the way other people live and the way other people merge with the universe and the powers that be. I read that book. I used to read it every year. And seriously, my back cover is like the date that I finished reading it. I'm now probably reading it about every 3 years because there's so much more to read. Huge impact on my life.
Who wrote that?
Marlo Morgan.
Marlo Morgan? Okay.
Mm-hmm. It's a very different book.
So what is it? So let me ask this. What do you pull out of it, though?
That things will appear as you need them when you trust that they will appear as you need them.
That's pretty unique.
Yeah. So there's a saying out there. It's Providence moves too, and it says that I'm gonna paraphrase it, but it says that until one is committed, we fall short. But once somebody is committed, then Providence moves in your favor.
Yep.
And all things that you never could have imagined, never could have orchestrated, will fall for you in your favor. And then our job is to see it.
Right.
Because we're so busy.
Yep.
We miss that it's right there on the desk. And we miss it.
I always look at opportunity that way. And, being open and understanding that it can happen at any time, in any place. Just be cognizant of it. And I think one of the best analogies for me being in sports is don't keep your head down looking at the puck, because otherwise you're going to get broadsided by that opportunity.
Yeah.
Or it's going to bypass you. So I think it's one of those things to kind of keep
Well,
your head
the
up.
Super
look
Bowl,
around.
right? The guys, it's the last, right? The guy's wide open in the middle of the field. And the announcers are even saying he could have gotten down to the 20-yard line on that play.
Yep.
And they throw it to the end zone.
Yep.
And they totally miss it. This guy's like wide open.
Yes, he was.
Yep.
Yeah, because I'm so focused on that I miss the interim.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right? But the only way we get there is the interim.
Yep.
Right? Football's a great analogy. It's 10 yards at a time.
Yes,
For sure.
4
One
times.
snap.
Yep.
How far are you going to go?
Yep.
And that, if we broke down the plan for our life, there's another book called The Kaizen Way.
Kaizen?
Kaizen, Kaizen, and it's about this method that says it's just continuous improvement. Small steps for continuous improvement. Small steps for continuous improvement.
That's intriguing to me.
1% more.
Yeah. Oh,
every day.
goodness. Yeah. We talk about that. If you're not growing, you're dying.
So there's so many things in theory, but the reality of it is, I think if we just applied one theory, right? One thing that we've talked about.
Yeah.
Somebody just apply one thing, they're going to be that much better off.
Yeah.
Our coach, Kristen Cole, talks about that. That's kind of been her motto for decades now. She's been in real estate for 35 years. Is at the end of the day, when everything's done, she always goes, okay, what's one more thing I can do today before I leave? Maybe one more phone call, one more email, whatever. She goes, it's amazing over 35 years when you add up just those more things a day.
Every day?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, 365 times 35.
Yeah.
That's a whole lifetime of
You're right.
one more
Absolutely.
thing.
Absolutely.
You can
So
cut.
how can people find you? Online, contact?
Yeah,
What's
there's 2 places. I have coursecreators.com.
okay?
It's my school website. And I have tbconsults.com, which is my coaching website. Or they can just email me
Okay.
at Theresa, Theresa, B, at Theresa, B, Barnabei, Consults, CONSULTS.com. That's my
Perfect.
email. Or call me, 520-631-4537.
Perfect.
Excellent.
Perfect.
Yeah.
You had a second
I
question?
do have one more.
Yes.
Where do you see yourself in 5 years?
I can answer this question. In 5 years, between now and 5 years, can I say that?
Absolutely.
I'm going to be doing spiritual retreats. And I mean spiritual in terms of self-actualization. Understanding how to dump your baggage, live your life by your design, and do all of that with the forces that are available to us in the universe.
That's intriguing.
Immersion weekend. It's called the Spirit of Life in Business.
That's intriguing. There's a lot of baggage that can be dropped.
That has to happen first.
That's right.
I heard one of my dad's best friends always used to say to me, he said, everybody's going to have baggage, just make sure yours is carry on.
Yeah.
I love that.
I love that. Yep.
Less is better
Yeah.
when it comes to baggage.
And not as heavy.
Not as heavy.
That's heavy. Can't exceed the weight limit
Yep.
on that.
I just don't think we realize what we put in our bags. By the time we're 7, we're 3/4 programmed. By the time we're 10, we're almost 100% programmed.
Wow.
So it takes a lot to undo what these important people in our lives have put in there. We just have to start recognizing that they put in our heads what worked for them
That's right.
at that time, right? And, you know, I look at my parents. Well, my dad worked in the industrial age. We're not in the industrial age anymore.
That's
so
right.
I got to start filtering out. What worked for him in that era isn't what works today in our era.
Yeah.
But again, it's stopping and sitting and saying, God, what's in that carry-on bag that I shouldn't be carrying anymore?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, get a job, stick to it, and wait for a pension.
The
No.
train is passed.
It's gone,
Yeah.
right?
Yep.
So now what's that mean? That means I got to take that out of my bag, and put, you know, we talk about Tony Robbins, put his financial book in there, put, right? New financial tools in there that work for today, not, I can't get a job, stay with it forever. And
I think we're in
live
a
on
big
my
shift
retirement.
with that right there. I think we're in a big shift with that. It's a struggle because you have one generation that's still thinks that way and pushes that way. And then you have another generation that's like, not questioning it, but it's like, however, but hang on a minute here, you know?
And I would say that a lot of kind of the older way of thinking, a lot of people still that have influence in leadership in the country and everything
Correct.
else.
Yeah.
So it
Correct.
is a rub.
Yeah.
It's the chafe, right?
Yeah.
When you look back at those generations, the work ethic, the morale, the responsibility, the showing up when you say you're showing up, those we keep, right?
Yeah.
That's the stuff we keep. But the idea that, you know, somebody else is going to help me make my way in my life and for the rest of my life, we get to make that. We get to make that way. Not we have to, but we get to make that way. They didn't have that luxury as easily as we have that luxury today.
What I love is when
So
you
keep
meet,
the good.
That's a,
Get rid of what doesn't serve us.
Yep. When you meet seasoned people, like I think of, so it's in all of our world, like JT.
Yes.
JT.
Brilliant.
JT is how old?
older than 50.
Yes. But JT, you meet
And it's
that
not
guy,
his birthday.
and he has got more experience than all of us
Yeah.
put together. But the way that he thinks sometimes, and the conversations you have, you're going, you're thinking like a millennial. Like it's, he gets it. He gets both sides of the fence.
I have learned
Yes.
a plethora of knowledge from him and continue to learn. I was just talking to him Friday.
Yeah. When I see him walking out to his car or something like
I
that,
will-
it's like I've got 30 seconds.
I will
with
capture
JT.
that.
Yes.
I will capture that opportunity.
Yes.
Yes, I will.
When you meet someone like him, we need to get him on the podcast. Actually,
There you go.
is you sprint across the parking lot in the hopes of getting a 45-second conversation.
Yeah. One nugget. And he's got a ton.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
just
He opens
gets
his mouth and I'm just like,
Yep.
I'm
Yeah.
listening.
You know it's gonna be.
I've been.
You know it's
privileged
gonna be
to
good and
have
funny
coaches.
too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
He's one
Yes.
of those guys
Yes.
that every single time you talk to him, you go, I feel like $1 million.
Yeah.
So,
Well, he was my coach, so yeah, he was pretty on point
oh yeah,
with a lot of things.
good guy.
So and
Good guy.
continued to be. So.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for coming out today.
Thank you.
Seriously,
Thank you.
I am just I can't thank you enough for what
I'm
you do,
honored.
what you continue to do, and I'm excited for the next before 5-year point for you, and keep us
Soon.
posted on that.
Yep.
And then-
Coming soon.
Yes, and
Awesome.
we'll see you every 2-3 months at a minimum.
Easy.
At a
Yep.
minimum. So, all right. Well, thank you.
All right.
And have a
Thank
good day.
you. Yep.
All right.
Thank you.
All right.
Appreciate
All right.
it.
Thank you.
Thank you.